Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Radiantly Feminine podcast, where we embrace elegance, confidence, and the power of true femininity. I'm your host, Mookie. So whether you're looking to refine your presence, elevate your mindset, or even navigate relationships with ease, this is going to be your space to grow and glow. So sit back, relax, and let's unlock your feminine power together. Hello, everybody. Thanks for pressing play today. We are going to be talking about something so many of us have experienced, but no one really prepares you for. At least in my early years, I didn't feel prepared for this part of my life. Anyways, that, ladies and gentlemen, is being ghosted. Yep. When someone you were vibing with suddenly disappears, like they got drafted into the witness protection program, no call, no text, no saying, hey, it's not you, it's me, just poof, gone. And let's be real, it hurts. It can be emotionally damaging. So let's go ahead and get right into the episode. I'm excited for this one. So first, let me say this. If you've ever been ghosted, it does not mean you're unlovable. It does not mean you're not enough. It does not mean you did something wrong. But it does create emotional whiplash. 1 minute there's connection, conversation, maybe even affection, and then suddenly silence. No explanation, just disappearance. That sudden drop can leave you feeling confused and questioning literally everything. And ghosting also activates rejection wounds if you have experienced rejection or abandonment in the past. Because if you've experienced abandonment, especially early in life, that can be a bit traumatic. And when you're dealing with it as an adult, it can make you feel unworthy, it can make you feel unlovable, or as if you did something wrong, even if you didn't. And you don't get closure, so you're left filling those missing pieces with assumptions, and sometimes those assumptions can be pretty harsh. And as humans, we are literally wired to seek meaning. And when we are ghosted, we are deprived of that. And when some people don't receive that much needed understanding of what went wrong, they can sometimes internalize that, and that can be really bad. When you're ghosted, it disrupts your trust, so you can start facing trust issues further down the line, because when someone ghosts you, it can make it harder to trust others in the future, and you start to expect abandonment, even in healthy connections. And I want you guys to know that ghosting can be especially bad for people with anxiety or abandonment wounds, and it can be bad for those recovering from emotional trauma, say they were in a DV relationship beforehand or they grew up really badly, and anyone in early stages of healing or personal development. Now, if you have ever ghosted someone or you're considering ghosting someone, you're not evil, but I want you to think about it. Just a short, honest message can spare someone deep confusion and hurt. A simple goodbye can go such a long way in reducing emotional damage. Something like, I appreciate our time together, but I don't feel aligned moving forward. Wishing you well. That one sentence is healing compared to total silence. So I do want you guys to consider that if you are in the habit of ghosting people or you're considering ghosting someone. If you have been ghosted, I just want you to know this. It says more about their emotional maturity than your worth. Or their emotional immaturity, I should say. Closure doesn't always come from them. It often comes from your decision to move forward anyway, regardless of what happened. With all of that being said, I want you to know that it's important to acknowledge your feelings when you are ghosted. I want you to validate those feelings. It's okay to feel confused. It's okay to feel hurt, angry, or even embarrassed. That confusion comes from the sudden drop in emotional safety. And our nervous system craves closure. And ghosting, honestly, it leaves a void instead. But it's so important to hold space for those emotions. It's okay if you're feeling embarrassed or disappointed from being ghosted. But what's not okay is suppressing those emotions and acting as if you're not affected by their actions when you really are. So I want you to feel it. I want you to challenge yourself to feel what's coming up when it does come up. Just give yourself that space and that time. If you're at work and those feelings start to come up, just take a break and just acknowledge those feelings and sit in those feelings until they pass, because it's so important to not suppress. It's so important to avoid suppressing your emotions. You don't have to suppress anything to look cool or unbothered, because that's not healing. That's avoidance. And of course, what would the episode be if I didn't have some tips to help you through being ghosted? So, tip number one, remind yourself it's not about your worth. Being ghosted doesn't mean you weren't good enough. It means the other person lacked the emotional maturity, courage, or communication skills to express themselves honestly. So, an affirmation you can say for tip number one is their silence is not a reflection of my value. Tip number two, resist the urge to chase closure. I know it can be super tempting to reach out, but them ghosting the situation or your connection, it says a lot in itself. So, like I said, it's tempting to reach out for answers, but if someone chose to disappear, they already showed you the level of care they are capable of. Chasing them doesn't bring that closure. And sometimes it even deepens the wound. So I want you guys to be mindful of this. Instead, you can write out what you wish you could say or hear and then burn it or delete it. And that symbolic closure can still be so powerful. I know it's not an ideal situation where you're having a one-on-one conversation with the person, but that can be so powerful in itself. Now, tip number three, clean up the space they left. So that will look like choosing to mute or unfollow them on social media, delete the thread or archive it so you're not tempted to reread it, and remove reminders of them from your phone. So that can be pictures, saved voice notes, etc. And this isn't about you erasing them. I want you guys to know it's not about erasing them out of your life and pretending like it didn't happen. You're just simply reclaiming your emotional space. Tip number four, allow yourself to feel without shame. Sadness, confusion, anger, embarrassment, it's all valid. So, like I stated earlier, ghosting creates a kind of ambiguous loss, and you're allowed to grieve it even if it wasn't a long relationship. You're allowed to cry. You're allowed to vent to a trusted friend. You're allowed to journal about it. Just don't minimize your pain just because it wasn't that serious. Tip number five, check for patterns, but try to not overanalyze with this step. So this means reflect on what this experience taught you. I love doing this. This is probably my favorite tip for ghosting or just dealing with endings that are really hard. You want to reflect on what that experience taught you, because I think that's what life is about, is just all the experiences that we get to have in our life. So just take some time to reflect on what you could have learned or what you should have learned from that experience. You might want to consider, were there red flags that you ignored so you don't do that moving forward? Did you feel emotionally safe with them? Were you being your full self with them? Or were you people pleasing? Try to use this situation as a mirror, not a bat. Don't beat yourself up about what happened. It's important to reflect on it and be able to move on. Tip number six, double down on your self-respect. Instead of asking, why did they leave? Shift the question to, what do I deserve in my next connection? This is going to be a powerful time for you to raise your standards, clarify your boundaries, and affirm what you will and will not tolerate moving forward. And lastly, tip number seven, reconnect with joy and wholeness. Do something that reminds you of your full, radiant self. Do something completely unrelated to them, like going out dancing or take yourself on a date or work out. Everyone knows I stay in the gym, so that one is top tier for me. You can start a new playlist, you can start a new book, or even just a fun DIY project. Just focus on doing what makes you happy so that you can feel like yourself again, because you were whole before them and you still are. So just remember, you don't need to hear "I'm sorry" to start healing. You only need to choose yourself. I also want to be honest with you guys. So here's the truth. It might be a little uncomfortable to hear this part, but it will also help to set you free. Someone who ghosts you is someone who doesn't know how to handle discomfort, accountability, or emotional responsibility. And baby, if they can't handle a simple "this isn't working for me" type of conversation, what makes you think they were ready to hold space for you? Please, 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 please let that sink in. Ghosting is not rejection. It's redirection. It's divine intervention wrapped in a silent exit. Now, the definition of ghosting is when someone you were communicating with, whether that was romantically, platonically, or even professionally, suddenly cuts off all communication without explanation and disappears like a ghost. So that's where the term ghosting comes from. So, whether you all were communicating through text, DMs, in person and calls, it all counts as ghosting if you all had some kind of meaningful connection and they did not provide a reason for their goodbye. Now, for me, when I address something that someone did that bothers me, I establish a boundary. I make sure it's a clear boundary. Now, I may have not been the best at doing this in the past because I struggled with setting boundaries and just knowing what it truly meant to set boundaries in a clear and communicative type of way. But I like to establish boundaries when I am addressing something that somebody did that bothers me. Because remember, boundaries are meant to protect your peace. They help you stay true to yourself and keep your life healthy and balanced. They are not about shutting people out. But after I state the boundary, and the person I have a connection with seems committed to pushing or crossing that boundary, I will give them a silent goodbye. Now, I don't want you guys to confuse this with ghosting because it's not. Because if someone can't find it in themselves to respect my boundary that I have clearly stated, remember, I make sure I am clearly stating that boundary. They may as well tell me that they do not respect me when they are continuously disrespecting my boundaries. So once I've done my part and spoke up, I do not take on the responsibility of having to keep remind them or reiterating that boundary over and over again. That's just something I will not do. So at that point, I don't look at my silence as cruelty. I look at it as self-respect. And sometimes the healthiest closure is no explanation at all, just distance, peace, and moving forward. But please, again, I will tell you guys again, do not confuse ghosting with not providing an explanation, because no explanation is only earned after you clearly have stated your boundaries. Otherwise, that turns into ghosting because it leaves the other person confused and wondering what happened. If you do not establish clear boundaries, they're not going to know what happened or what made you upset, because everybody does not have the same type of boundaries, and you have to keep that in mind. And that's assuming they weren't acting in a malicious way. So say they weren't being abusive or manipulative or anything like that, then you want to make sure you are stating clear boundaries. But I like to do that with everyone just so that way I just know I'm doing my part in speaking up and stepping up for myself. But if you are someone who struggles with over-explaining yourself, you can try to say something like, I've already expressed my boundaries and now I need to step back for my own peace. I wish you well. And just leave it at that. You don't have to go into a full explanation of what they did and this and that, or, what boundary they crossed. Because, again, remember, state your boundaries clearly. Now, let's get back to why people ghost. And it's not to excuse it, but to understand it. They could simply be avoidant and want to avoid conflict. So, in other words, they don't want to have the uncomfortable conversation. Or they are emotionally immature, so they don't know how to express discomfort or a lack of interest. They could also be guilty of mistreatment, so since they feel bad, they just disappear, and that just feels a lot easier for them. And this falls under the lines of emotional immaturity, but they could lack the communication skills to have that uncomfortable conversation, so it's easier to just disappear altogether. So the bottom line is that ghosting is not only rude, but it's emotionally irresponsible. It leaves the other person with no reason or closure. It leaves them feeling confused, and it can even leave an emotional bruise that makes future connections harder to form. So just keep in mind, it's always more respectful and more human to send even a short message to close the door, because ghosting is the illusion of disappearance. But the wound it leaves is very, very real. Okay, so now that we have discussed all of that, I want to touch on how sometimes what really hurts isn't the person, it's the story we have built around them. And I talked about this in one of my previous episodes, but this is maybe he is the one, or we had such a connection. But let me be blunt. You didn't get ghosted by your soulmate. Soulmates don't vanish. They actually evolve you. They lean in. So let's stop mourning a fantasy. Let's stop investing in people who didn't invest in clarity with you. Period. Because romanticizing potential is one of the biggest traps in dating. It's one of the biggest traps you can set for yourself, especially for emotionally intelligent, heart-centered woman. It keeps you emotionally attached to what could be rather than accepting what it actually is. So as always, I have some tips to help you all stop falling in love with potential. Tip number 1, look at consistency, not promises. So this is going to help you avoid being love bombed. Literally anyone can say the right things, but potential lives in words and their true character lives in their consistency. So try saying to yourself, do their actions match their words? If the answer is no, you know what to do. Tip number 2, date who they are today, not who they might become. You're not dating a future version of them that only exists in your head. You are dating the person right in front of you. Flaws, habits, all of that. You have to be willing to accept them for who they are. That means stop placing them on a pedestal, stop idolizing and obsessing over them. Stop placing them in a box and holding behavioral expectations over their head. I talk about this all the time, but a big part of embodying your feminine energy involves being present. So when you're constantly in your head making assumptions and playing scenarios in your mind, you are actually dissociating from the present and taking away from that time that can be used to actually get to know the person in front of you. So try asking yourself, would I be content if nothing about them changed? And if the answer is no, you are dating their potential. Also, if you catch yourself thinking things like, if they just got it together, or I know they could be amazing, or only if they finish blank, they'll start treating me better. I want you to take a step back and ask yourself, what evidence do I actually have of that happening? Tip number 3, stop confusing struggle with depth. A lot of people romanticize brokenness, thinking it means someone is deep or just needs love to heal. My friends, that is a trauma bond. That's not true intimacy. Healthy love doesn't actually require you to become someone's therapist or their mother or even their rehab center. Loving someone should not mean self-abandonment. Also, the more you focus on who they could be, the more you shrink yourself into who you think they need you to be. I want you to know that you deserve someone who's already showing up, not someone you're hoping will catch up to you. And tip number 4, avoid fixer-upper projects. You are not here to renovate a person's self-worth, ambition, or their emotional intelligence. That's their job. Love should feel like alignment, not labor or an assignment. I always try to tell people this, but someone who is not happy with themselves or in a position in their life that they want to be in, they're not able to truly pour into a romantic connection with you because, like I said this before, you are supposed to give from your overflow. In other words, you cannot pour from an empty cup. And honestly, think about it. If they are not experiencing happiness within themselves, they will do nothing but take your happiness away from you. Because a man who is lacking in something will take it away from you. Say, for instance, if he's insecure, he will try to attack your self-esteem to make himself feel more worthy of being with you. Tip number 5, practice radical acceptance. Now, this part is hard, but it's also very freeing. You need to say to yourself, this is who they are right now. Can I accept that without needing to change them? If you can't, it's not a match. You shouldn't have to change somebody in order for them to fit into your life, because then it just turns into a project. You need to walk around with the mindset of a queen. Sometimes that involves you telling yourself, hey, I am no longer available to water empty gardens. I choose mutual energy, not emotional potential. Now, you need to try to shift the narrative with this part. It's okay to be a little bit delulu. Instead of saying, why me? Say, thank you. Yes, thank you. Because now you're not wasting months or even years on someone who's not a good match for you. So I really do appreciate when people do ghost me, because that just is, it makes it that much easier for me to remove them out my life, because I don't want anybody in my life who shouldn't be there or who doesn't fit in my life or is not aligned with me. You didn't lose a partner when they do ghost you. You are dodging a future headache, and now you have space for someone who chooses you loudly, consistently, and presently. When someone walks away silently, take that silence as clarity, because they are helping you clear space for what is meant to be in your life. So, before we end this episode, I just want to give you guys some grounded steps when you are dealing with someone who's ghosting you. Number one, don't chase closure. I honestly don't think closure is truly real because unless you did something wrong and you need that information to help you be a better person moving forward. So I don't want you to send long texts demanding explanations. It's not your job to extract maturity from someone who lacks it. Number two, ground yourself. Do a nervous system reset. Breathe, journal, get into your body. Ghosting creates emotional chaos. So just be sure you are returning to your true self. Number three, reaffirm your worth. I want you to write down 10 reasons why you're the catch. Say them out loud, look in the mirror, embody those reasons that you write down. Number four, set your new standards. Next time, pay attention to the consistency, communication, and follow through. If someone starts being wishy-washy, baby, don't wait for the fade out. You walk out. Just let them know, hey, this is not in alignment with what I'm looking for or what I value or something along those lines, and go ahead and be out. You don't have to wait for them to ghost you if you can already see that their actions are aligning with a ghoster's. Number five, don't internalize it. Release the need to figure them out. So that means focus on what you now know about you and what you want next. I want you guys to know that ghosting can make you want to masculine up. This can look like you needing to guard your heart, never care again, or play games to avoid being played. And if you resort to playing games, trust me, you'll only be playing yourself out of real connections. But that's a whole nother story for another day. But don't let a disconnected person pull you out of alignment with your soft, sacred energy. Being feminine doesn't mean being foolish. It means you trust yourself to feel, heal, and move forward without closing your heart off. So trust me when I say you can stay open. Just use discernment. You can stay soft, but you still have a strong mind. You can be emotional and still be empowered. So I just want to say, you didn't deserve silence. You didn't deserve confusion. But you do deserve love that shows up, speaks up, and doesn't disappear when things get real. So if someone couldn't see your worth, that's their limitation, not your lack. So I want you to repeat after me. I am the prize. I attract love that stays. I release anything that was never mine to begin with. I want to thank you guys so much for spending time with me today. If this episode spoke to you, please share it with a friend who might need this reminder as well. And if no one has told you today, let me be the first to tell you that you are worthy of love, respect, and devotion that doesn't ghost you. Until next time, stay grounded in your truth, and remember, just because they vanished doesn't mean your magic did. And just remember that rejection is simply redirection to a better alignment. Don't chase the disappearing. You actually need to receive what's meant to remain. So stay soft and feminine, and I will talk to you guys next week. Bye.